My girlfriend humiliated me in front of everyone at the restaurant by calling me a cuckold. She said it was just a joke. I'm 27 years old and my girlfriend Clara is 25. We've been together for a year and 8 months. Until recently, I considered our relationship good. We laughed together, had plans for the future, and although like any couple we've had arguments, we always resolved them by talking. Or at least that's what I thought. The problem started a few days ago, and it all arose from something so small that in another moment I might not have paid attention to it, but this time I can't get it out of my head. It was a Thursday night. Clara was at her apartment. We live separately, but we spend most of the week together, and I was at mine. While I was working on the computer, I got an Instagram notification. She had posted a story. I opened it without thinking much about it. It was the typical TikTok video that people download and share. The video showed a girl looking at the camera, with overlaid text that said, "No matter how in love I am, I'll always be unfaithful." The girl in the video was smiling and making a shrugging gesture with her hands, while a song played in the background. Clara had posted it just like that, without any comment, without "it's a joke" or an emoji. She just shared it with the original music and that was it. At first, I thought it was some weird hint or that she had posted it to get attention. I know her well enough to know that sometimes she likes to share memes or sarcastic videos, but never something so direct about infidelity. I don't know if it was paranoia or instinct, but I immediately felt a knot in my stomach. I decided not to say anything at that moment. I didn't want to be the typical boyfriend who makes a scene over a post. But the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I felt. I wondered, why did she find that funny? What message was she sending, not just to me but to everyone who follows her? Does she really think that? That night I could barely sleep. In the morning when we saw each other, she acted normal. She gave me a kiss as always, asked how I had slept, and started telling me about her yoga class. I didn't say anything yet, but my mind kept going over the video. I couldn't hold it in anymore, and after having lunch together, I asked her directly, "Hey, I saw the TikTok you posted last night, why did you share it?" She laughed a little, as if she thought it was absurd that I was asking, and said, "Oh, that? It was just a joke. I saw it and it made me laugh, that's all. It didn't convince me." I replied, "But it's a joke about being unfaithful. I don't understand why you'd find it funny, especially being in a relationship." Clara shrugged. "It's dark humor. It doesn't mean I think that way. Sometimes people share things that have nothing to do with their life." I told her that for me it was different, because in a relationship that kind of joke can have an underlying meaning, and it made me feel uncomfortable. She sighed as if she was tired of the conversation and said, "Then I can't share anything because you're going to take everything personally." The talk ended there because I didn't want to keep arguing, but since then I felt weird. On one hand, I know people share memes and videos without taking them seriously. I've done it myself. But on the other hand, I also know that many jokes hide a bit of truth, or at least show a type of thinking that the person finds funny or acceptable. Plus, it's not the first time Clara has made comments that leave me thinking. A few months ago, during a dinner with friends, one of them told a story about when he was cheated on. Everyone laughed about how he found out, and Clara said something like, "Well, if someone cheats on you and you don't notice, did they really cheat on you?" She said it laughing, but it seemed like a strange comment to me. At the time I let it go, but now it's coming back to my mind. Since that day with the TikTok, I've noticed that I'm paying more attention to her social media. I don't spy on her or check her phone, but every time she posts something, I wonder what it means or who it's aimed at. And I don't like feeling this way. Before, I trusted her without a second thought, but now there's this little thorn that won't let me rest. Last Saturday we were at her apartment watching series. In one scene, a character was cheating on their partner. Clara burst out laughing and said, "What an idiot the girlfriend is for trusting so much." When I looked at her, she quickly said, "It's a joke, don't make that face." And there was again that tone between joke and not joke. I don't know if she says it to tease me or because she really believes that trust in a relationship is something that can be broken and it's no big deal. Last night I brought up the topic again, but this time trying not to sound accusing. I said, "Look, I understand that TikTok was a joke, but it didn't make me laugh and it made me uncomfortable. I'd like you to delete it." She frowned and said, "I'm not going to delete it. If it bothers you so much, just don't watch my stories. I can't be thinking about what to post just so it doesn't bother you." I didn't know what to say. On one hand, she's right. She can't live worrying about everything she posts just for me. But on the other hand, it seems to me that if something you share genuinely bothers your partner and it's not important to you, it doesn't cost anything to remove it. What worries me most isn't the video itself, but that she didn't make me feel like a priority in that situation. She didn't try to understand why it bothered me, she just focused on it being humor and that I was too sensitive. I'm afraid this is a sign of something bigger, that if a serious problem ever arises, she'll minimize it or take it as my exaggeration. I don't know if I'm overanalyzing everything or if there's really something behind it. Part of me wants to let it go, but another part thinks that ignoring small signs is what leads people to unpleasant surprises later. I wonder if the trust we had is already broken or if this is just a small crack that I can repair by talking to her. But I'm also scared to think that maybe this joke is a clue to how she views fidelity, and that one day I'll end up discovering it wasn't as much of a joke as she said. That's all for now. I don't know if I'm the one seeing ghosts where there are none, or if I really should be worried. Update: a few days have passed since I wrote here, and although I thought the TikTok thing would be isolated, I realize it wasn't. Clara has continued sharing memes and videos related to infidelity. Some are lighter, like those that say all women have a plan B, and others are more direct, with phrases like, "If they don't catch me, it doesn't count." I tried to ignore it at first so as not to seem obsessive, but the situation is starting to get out of control. It doesn't just bother me, now my friends have started making comments too. One of them messaged me on WhatsApp, "Hey, everything okay with Clara? Because I see she's posting a lot of weird stuff." Another mentioned it in person, half jokingly but with an uncomfortable tone, "Are you preparing to be the star of her memes?" That kind of comment makes me feel humiliated. Not because I think they might be right, but because the image she's giving of our relationship to others is terrible. I feel like she's putting me in a ridiculous position. Today I decided to talk about it again. I asked her to meet in person, and when we sat down for coffee, I got straight to the point. "Look, I already told you before. I don't like you sharing those infidelity memes. Now my friends are saying things to me and it bothers me. Really, I need you to stop doing it." She didn't seem to take it seriously. She laughed, looked at me with an expression like she was seeing an angry child, and said, "Oh, honey, you look so funny when you're mad, how cute." At that moment I felt a mix of anger and disappointment. I couldn't believe that after everything I'd explained to her, her reaction was that. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't for her to treat me like I was throwing a tantrum over nothing. I stayed silent for a few seconds, trying not to raise my voice, but I was too upset. I ended up telling her, "You know, I'm fed up with this disrespect. This isn't a game. If you don't stop this, I'm going to end the relationship." She stopped smiling for a second, but then just shrugged. She didn't say she would, didn't apologize, didn't even ask why I felt that way. I grabbed my things and left. I didn't want to keep talking because I knew if I stayed, things could escalate more. I'm tired of feeling like what bothers me doesn't matter. Right now I'm seriously thinking about whether it's worth continuing with someone who, when I set a boundary, decides to laugh instead of respecting it. Update: a couple of weeks have passed since the last time I wrote here. I made it clear to her that it wasn't a joke to me, that it wasn't about me being jealous or controlling, but about basic respect in the relationship. I told her that if it happened again, it was over. She seemed to feel it and promised she understood. For 2 weeks she kept her word. She didn't post anything related to infidelity or make strange comments. In fact, things between us seemed to have improved. We went out, watched movies, and although that distrust still lingered in the background, I tried not to think about it too much. But everything exploded last night. We went to a dinner with a group of friends, several mutual and others closer to her. The gathering was at a fairly busy restaurant, one of those with live music and a relaxed atmosphere. The place has a fun dynamic. Customers can request songs and dedicate them to someone, either to joke or as a romantic gesture. There's even a small microphone they pass to whoever wants to give a public dedication. We were sitting at a large table. The conversation was flowing among everyone. Some talked about trips, others about work, and I was chatting with a couple of friends about a recent movie. In the middle of that, I noticed Clara was with her friend Paulina, both leaning over the phone, laughing quietly. It wasn't unusual to see them like that, but there was something in the way they looked at each other and then at me that made me uncomfortable. I asked, "What are you laughing about?" She looked up and said, "Nothing." I didn't insist. I thought if she wanted to tell me, she would. I kept talking with the others, trying not to get hung up on it. A few minutes passed and I saw Clara get up. She went to the area where the music guy was, talked to him, and took the microphone. Everyone at the table turned to look. Some joked that she was surely going to dedicate some corny song to me. But then, with a smile on her face, Clara said into the microphone, "I want to request the song, 'I'm Not the Only One' by Sam Smith." The crowd murmured in recognition. That song is clearly about someone who has been cheated on and the other person knows it. And then she finished with, "Because it perfectly describes my boyfriend, the cuckold over there." She pointed directly at me. In that instant, everyone at the table let out that typical woo people do when something is controversial or inflammatory. Some laughed, others looked uncomfortable, but everyone was looking at me. I froze for a couple of seconds, trying to process what had just happened. I felt a mix of shame, anger, and humiliation. It wasn't a private joke. It wasn't something between us. She had done it in front of everyone in a place full of people. I stood up immediately without saying anything. Clara, still holding the microphone, burst out laughing and said, "It's a joke, love." Paulina dared me. That phrase hit me even harder. Not only did she not apologize, but she justified her disrespect by saying it was a dare from her friend, as if that made it acceptable. I didn't respond. I walked toward the restaurant exit while hearing her yell from afar, "Love, wait. It's a joke." I didn't stop. I went out, got in my car, and with a jerky start, drove away from the place. My hands were shaking while driving. I didn't know if I was more upset about what she said or how she did it, in front of my friends, hers, and strangers who had now seen me as the target of a cruel joke. On the way home, my phone rang several times. Clara was calling insistently. I didn't answer. I didn't want to hear more excuses or laughter. I knew that if I picked up in that moment, the conversation would be much worse. I got to my apartment, dropped the keys on the table, and without thinking too much, opened my social media. I removed Clara from everything: Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. I even blocked her number so I wouldn't get more calls. I don't know if it was impulsive or if I had really decided it a while ago, but in that moment I knew I couldn't continue with someone who mocked me like that, especially after I'd set such a clear boundary. Now I'm here in silence with the phone on the table and the feeling that, more than anger, what I feel is disappointment. It's not just about the joke. It's about realizing that for her, my feelings don't weigh enough to stop a cheap laugh. I don't know if tomorrow I'll regret having removed her from everything, but for now I feel it was the only thing I could do to regain a bit of dignity. Update: 3 days have passed since that night at the restaurant. Since I blocked her on my social media, Clara has tried to reach me through other ways, text messages from a different number, emails, and even asking mutual acquaintances to talk to me and give her a chance to speak. At first I didn't want to respond. It seemed like there was nothing more to say. But last night, after receiving a long message where she said she was sorry and needed to explain things in person, I ended up agreeing. Not because I thought we were getting back together, but because I wanted to make things clear and, in a way, close it once and for all. We met at a cafe we used to frequent. I arrived before her and sat at a secluded table toward the back, to avoid curious looks. When she came in, I saw she had red eyes as if she'd been crying before arriving. She was wearing a loose hoodie and her hair tied back, which made me think she wasn't coming with the intention of impressing me like other times. She sat across from me and at first the atmosphere was tense. We didn't say anything for a few seconds until she let out a sigh and started talking. "I'm really so sorry," she said with a broken voice. "I didn't think it would affect you that much. It wasn't my intention to humiliate you." I listened in silence. It seemed to me that for the first time she was acknowledging she'd done something wrong. Her eyes filled with tears and for a moment I thought maybe she meant it from the heart. But that idea didn't last long. A few minutes later, while I was telling her that the worst part wasn't the joke itself but the constant lack of respect, she changed her tone. She stopped crying, leaned back in the chair and said, "Come on, don't exaggerate either. Don't throw everything away over an innocent joke." That phrase lit me up inside. After everything that happened, after I'd explained so many times how it made me feel, was she still calling it innocent? I couldn't help responding with sarcasm. "Innocent? Would you like it if I posted a picture of you saying, 'Little slut for sale for $200? She opened her eyes wide, offended. "What's wrong with you?" she exclaimed. "How could you say something like that to me?" I leaned forward and without raising my voice said, "That's exactly how I felt. Exactly like that." There was an awkward silence. She looked at me with a mix of surprise and annoyance, as if she hadn't expected me to give her such a direct example. I made it clear that I didn't want to see her again, that I couldn't continue with someone who didn't respect the most basic boundaries. And then, instead of reacting with sadness or genuine anger, she adopted that mocking attitude that bothered me so much. "Honey, don't project," she said, smiling arrogantly. "You're the one no one will want, and you'll cry over losing this." As she said it, she brought her hands to her chest, emphasizing her cleavage. I don't know if it was the built-up anger, the impulse of the moment, or just being fed up, but I laughed. A short, joyless laugh and responded, "Clara, you're a tiny B cup. You're far from a D cup, not those juiceless little oranges." As soon as I said it, her expression changed completely. It wasn't pure anger, it was a mix of indignation and surprise. She clearly hadn't expected me to play her game with something equally personal. I know it wasn't right. It's not something I'm proud of, but in that instant I felt like, for the first time, I was giving her back the same treatment. I got up from the table without waiting for her response and walked toward the exit. As I walked away, I could still hear her saying my name, but no longer with the pleading tone from the beginning. It was more like, "I can't believe you said that to me." I got in my car and sat for a few seconds, breathing deeply. I had a strange feeling. On one hand, I knew I'd crossed a line with my comment. On the other, I felt strangely liberated. For a long time she had toyed with my patience, laughing at me and making me look ridiculous. Maybe it wasn't the most mature way to close everything, but I felt that, at least, I didn't leave silently. On the drive back home, I reflected on everything that had happened in these months. I realized that from the beginning, I had ignored signs that Clara enjoyed provoking reactions, even at the cost of hurting. She disguised it as humor or play, but deep down it was a way to assert power in the relationship. And most importantly, I understood that my mistake wasn't just tolerating it, but thinking I could change it. Now, driving at night through empty streets, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: tranquility. Not joy, not revenge, but that calm that comes when you finally accept that something is over and there's no turning back.